is day 2 in Zolder. Hello everyone, welcome to the DTM. It's the 8th race weekend of the season, which means we only have 3 races to go. And yeah, René Rast had an amazing qualifying and an amazing race yesterday, which means he is now leader of the championship. But beware of this man, Nico Müller, who's already sitting in the car ready for the qualifying, because surely he is going to give his all and fight back. So all in all, we have 3 contenders who can still snatch the title. And one thing is for sure, this qualifying is absolutely essential, because you've got to collect as many points as possible, of course. And it's going to be exciting. Here's your commentator.
Thanks very much indeed. Good morning, everybody. Welcome then to a slightly misty, slightly grey and definitely quite a cold Zolder, but a dry track awaits, and it should be a dry track for the race this afternoon as well. There's a 93% chance it's going to be dry, and that's the most negative view. The best view is that it's a 98% chance of a dry race this afternoon. So straightforward really in that sense for the drivers and teams, in that we've got very similar conditions than we had yesterday. I'm Chris Hartley, and I'm going to talk you through the 20-minute qualifying session to determine the grid for the 16th round of the DTM 2020 Championship. Just 3 qualifying sessions to go this season, just 3 races to go, and just 3 drivers, as Verena said, that can win the championship. One thing that we do know for certain is that it is going to go down to the final weekend at Hockenheim, because after this weekend there'll still be 56 points available, and the biggest gap that the championship leader could walk away with at the end of qualifying on the race today would be 43 points. That's from first to third. So there is definitely going to be 3 drivers going into Hockenheim still with a chance.
3, 2, 1, and we go.
So this is Nico Müller, and this is an absolutely huge qualifying session for him. Zolder has not been particularly kind to the driver that arrived here, 8 or 9 days ago before the first weekend at Zolder, with a 47-point lead in the championship. Not only has that vanished, he's also dropped down to 2nd place in the standings now behind René Rast, and only 5 points clear of this man, his teammate at Audi Sport Team Ab Sportsline, which is Robin Freins. So 277 points for René Rast, 267 for Nico Müller, 262 for Robin Freins. 15 points between them. There are potentially 9 points available from the remaining qualifying sessions, so that can make a huge difference as well, particularly when you consider there's only 10 points between the top 2 in the championship. So to remind you, 3 points for getting pole position, 2 points if you qualify 2nd, and a point if you qualify in 3rd. Last Sunday, the driver you just seen in the cockpit, Timo Glock, was the driver that scored pole position. There to the right of the picture is Thomas Biermeier, who is the team principal for Team Ab Sportsline, who have already wrapped up the team's championship. They did so last weekend, and with the Brands Championship having long since been decided in favour of Audi, have now got more than 1,000 points in the championship. It's all about the drivers' championship, and Thomas has 2 drivers that could still win this one. Team Rosberg have the one driver, René Rast, who is the driver on a real march after taking 3 consecutive race victories here at Zolder over the last 2 weekends. And he has also now taken 7 consecutive podium finishes. So Rast is the driver to beat. It's been difficult in qualifying, and that's what's really caused the problems for Nico Müller. He was 7th on the grid for both of the races last weekend, came through well in race 1 to get himself onto the podium in 3rd place, was unlucky in the 2nd because the mid-race pit stop, which we've already talked about this weekend, with Robin Freins, his teammate, crashing out on the exit to the pit lane, bringing out the mid-race safety car and really causing trouble to those that hadn't already got their pit stops completed, in that they obviously had the field bunched up and weren't able to, all their gaps, their advantages had gone essentially when they were able to then come in and make their pit stops after the safety car went back in, and one of those drivers was Müller. So again, he got into the points, but it wasn't the result that it perhaps could have been, perhaps almost certainly should have been. So 3rd and 9th in the races last weekend. And then even worse qualifying yesterday, only 8th on the grid, his worst of the season. His 3 worst qualifyings have all been here at Zolder. 8th on the grid, and then in turn 2, Harrison Newey, who'd been pushed wide through the first corner, came back down the inside of Nico Müller. There was contact. Müller was forced out wide and lost 6 positions, so he dropped down to last but 1, 15th of the 16 runners, but came back, used an early pit stop strategy to come through to recover to 6th place. But as he said at the end of the race yesterday, a lot of points were left on the table. It's very frustrating. And, well, it's got to work really hard now. He knows that this circuit just doesn't quite suit him, the car. For whatever reason, it's just been missing a little bit here. So, again, it could be damage limitation here for him. If he could get up onto I think even the second row of the grid, he'd be pretty pleased about that, to get him away from perhaps some of the trouble at the start of the race this afternoon. But having had the championship lead all the way through for the first time this season, Nico Müller now becomes the hunter, now trying to catch up René Rast. Robin Freins likewise as well. But Robin, who you're on board with now, had an excellent drive yesterday to second. And he certainly pushed René Rast all the way. In the middle of the race, he was all over the back.
And then
take a
gap to Glock, no problem.
As Robin Freins gets advice on the radio about track positioning. Robin Freins, an excellent race, just on the tyres. He was saying at the end of the race, if you get too close to the car in front around here, the tyres really suffer, and he lost the car a little bit coming out of turn 3, just as he was on the tail of Rast, onto the curbs. And that split second, with the traction that he lost, ended up costing him more than a second on that lap. So dropped back, and he dropped back a little bit more, let the tyres get themselves back in order. It was about 3.5 seconds down with about 10 or 12 minutes to go, and then went on a real charge again at the end of the race, and he was within a second of René Rast as they crossed the line. So much closer to the pace of René Rast in the race. So all the cars out for this 20-minute session. They'll have a couple of laps to get the tyres up to temperature. The third lap is probably the first time they'll really push, and then the fourth lap is the one that could be the golden ticket to pole position, or provisional pole position. Chats to have a look at the circuit here. This is turn 7, most undulating of the turns. Great corner this, down towards the Gilles Villeneuve chicane, which is the second chicane on the lap. Right, left and right through there you ride. And when they're at full speed through there, that's around about 90 kilometres an hour at the slowest point, second gear. Accelerating out through there, through Tellerman corner, and up towards turn 12, Bolderberg Haarspelt, named after the local area. They turn right through here, and then there's a jink left and right, but it's taken flat out as they accelerate through the penultimate chicane, if you want to call it that, the Ockenrin chicane, down towards the final chicane at Jackie X, down again to about 75 kilometres an hour in second gear, through the left, through the right. Let it drift out wide. It's a slight uphill climb on the way out of the corner, over the crest, and then over the start-finish line down towards turn 1 at Aster. You're actually beginning to descend, slightly downhill run then, with the weight over the front wheels of the car, into this left-hander, which at full speed is taken in third gear at about 150 kilometres an hour. Right then, here is René Rast, who continues to break more and more records. I was looking at his win and podium percentage record last night after the race, and Bernd Schneider, who's the most successful driver ever in DTM in terms of race wins, the full-time champion, got 43 wins from 236 starts. So he won, Bernd Schneider, 18% of his races. René Rast has won 22 out of 73. It's 30% of the races that he started, René Rast has won, which is incredible. He only came into the championship off the back of many years as multiple Porsche champion, and he's taken 30% of his race starts have been converted into race wins. Podium-wise, Bernd Schneider got 112 podiums from 236 starts. That was 47% of the time that Bernd Schneider was in a race. He finished on the podium. That's hugely impressive. But then you look at René Rast's record, 37 podiums now from 73 starts. That's 51% of the races that he started. He's finished on the podium. It's quite an incredible record. So, in other words, it's going to be a hard driver to beat here, but we'll see how these slightly cooler temperatures fare. That's been a challenge for the drivers. We saw yesterday behind the top two a first ever podium for Ferdinand Habsburg. Terrific performance in qualifying. Qualified second. He was only 34 thousandths of a second adrift of the ultimate lap time of René Rast, and actually didn't get the chance to put a second really quick lap time in because there were yellow flags out when he was on his hot lap, he was saying. So could he perhaps go for his first ever pole position? He's had 2 front row starts this year, Ferdinand, driving very well indeed, one of the form drivers. And then in 4th place, best result of the season so far for Jonathan Aberdeen, his third 4th place finish in his 2 seasons, or nearly 2 seasons of DTM. He really pushed Ferdinand hard for the final half of the race, gave it his all, but was satisfied that he actually got the most out of that car that he could have. Qualified fourth, finished in fourth place. So very strong drives from those two youngsters. And also Fabio Scherer. We didn't see too much of the first half of the race, but in the second half of the race, he had to work very hard to fend off Nico Muller and Timo Glock and Jamie Green, who caught up as well. So Fabio Scherer with his second consecutive fifth place finish, his second points finish in DTM. So those three young drivers doing an excellent job. And then Muller was, as we say, coming home in sixth place. Good points scored as well for another young rookie who's impressed here at Zolder, Harrison Newey. So Rast is on his first push lap. This won't be the lap that will get provisional pole position. He should be able to go quicker on the second run once the tyres are really on the sweet spot. But for now, he's going to set the early benchmark time here, as he often does. René Rast coming out of the Jackie X chicane, and he'll go over the line as Trelier gets a cancellation of lap times. And the first time's a pretty decent one, it has to be said, for the first run. That is good, 1 minute 19.5 seconds. 1:19.6 for his Rosberg teammate, Jamie Green. And Muller's about to come through. His first effort's a 1:19.9. Yesterday, the qualifying record was broken, and it was René Rast with a 1 minute 18.843. So they're still 3/4 of a second away from that. However, it's on this next lap that we could see those times really being pushed. We'll see how the track holds up compared to yesterday as well, whether it's a bit quicker or a bit slower. René Rast has set the absolute best first sector time. Robin Frijns is on a good lap as well. He was the absolute best through the first sector until Rast went quicker further back behind him on the lap. And we can see Lukas Sauer coming through on the podium here last weekend. Timo Glock on pole position here last weekend, and Robin Frijns was on the podium yesterday. Absolute best in the second sector then for René Rast, a 29.1. That's half a second quicker through the second sector than Robin Frijns managed to go. Habsburg's top of the times for now, but he's about to be smashed, I think. 1:19.5 is the time to beat, and Robin Frijns comes through with a time of 1:19.831, but here is Rast, and this should be the time to put him to the top of the times. Rast comes through, goes over the line, and it's a 1:18.849, so he goes fastest. Jamie Green second on a 1:19.4, Habsburg down to third. Rockenfellow comes through with a 1:19.388, and what about Muller? Can he find anything that's better? 1:19.389, he's third. Absolute 100% focus and concentration required here. Made a mistake on one of his flying laps yesterday as he pushed a bit too hard coming out of the final chicane, and he can't afford to do anything like that today. Fabio Scherer with a good lap as well. Has gone fourth quickest, 1:19.421. So it's Rast, Rockenfellow and Muller the top three. Scherer in fourth, Green in fifth, Newey in sixth. Van der Linde is into fifth place. And Jonathan Aberdeen has just crossed the line to go second, 1:19.063. It's changing all the time. And the second half of the session, you suspect is going to be even quicker as more rubber gets laid down on the circuit. Rast had a lap time cancelled for track limits, so he's had that time taken away, and it now means that Habsburg, who's done a 1:19.035, goes to provisional pole position. Aberdeen second, Eng's up to third. Robin Frijns comes through and gets himself into the top three now with a 1:19.170. So Eng down to fourth, Rockenfellow fifth, and Muller, who was third, has found himself down in sixth place now. René Rast has gone into the pits. He's 13th because he had that lap time taken away. Robin Frijns down the inside of Timo Glock. We've got Fabio Scherer on another good lap here as well, and on for a personal best. So he's just about to come through the final sector. He's in seventh place at the moment with a 1:19.4. If he can find a tenth of a second, he'll get himself into the top five. So a decent lap from Harrison Newey, but doesn't improve. And here's Fabio Scherer about to come over the line. Where will this put him? In the top six? It puts him to the top of the times. Fantastic final sector with a 1:19.012. That's the fastest lap of the session. And how about this for a turn up? Fabio Scherer, halfway through the session, is on provisional pole position, 1:19.012. Wow. And that is hugely close again, a 1:19.035 for Habsburg. So you've only got 23 thousandths of a second between the top two. And only, what, 55 thousandths of a second, so just over half a tenth of a second behind in third, Jonathan Aberdeen. So those three all on 1:19.0. Scherer, Habsburg, Aberdeen. We talked about the quick drivers, the next generation of drivers impressing yesterday. They've done it again today, and in spades. Scherer, Habsburg and Aberdeen, the top three halfway through the session. Muller in fourth. He improved on his last run through. So that's a bit more encouraging for him. And it's also encouraging because he's ahead of his two championship rivals. Robin Freins is fifth, and René Rast, who was top of the times, was into the 1:18s, 13th. Don't rule him out, but of course he's effectively only got half the session now to get himself pole position. He's going to have, well, he's going to have 2 laps really, but he's probably really going to have one proper chance on that second flying lap when the tyres are up to temperature to get that pole position. So we'll see what he can do. But René Rast a couple of times here at Zolder in this last 2 weekends has left it to the very last minute and still got himself up onto pole position. So here, Jonathan Aberdeen, the BMW Team RMR driver with the third fastest time. Best of the BMWs, as he was in qualifying yesterday. He was in the top 3 yesterday until the very end of the session where Robin Freins just pipped him. Second for Habsburg, and Fabio Scherer at the top of the times off the back of his 2 best results in his maiden season of DTM, which have both come here at Zolder, 2 fifth-place finishes. So looking potentially for a maiden pole position, but do not rule out René Rast just yet, because I know he had the lap time taken away from him, and it doesn't count, but he again showed that he is capable of getting into the 1:18s. But the track, or at least the drivers, seem to be going a bit quicker generally, because Scherer, Habsburg and Aberdeen all in the low 1:19s. Much quicker than they went in the equivalent session yesterday. Apart from Habsburg, I suppose, did a 1:18.8, but Fabio Scherer yesterday qualified 9th with a time of 1:19.4, so he's gone 4 tenths quicker. So taking a bit too much curb with 4 wheels over the curbs. This was where he had his lap taken away from him, essentially. You can put 2 wheels over the lines and onto the curbs, where there are curbs, but not all 4. So a judge to have straight-lined the chicane and the lap time taken away from him. I'm sure, much to his frustration. He certainly won't be the first driver to have his lap times taken away from him this weekend. Surprisingly, René Rast keen to get out.
Newey, who's on the same strategy.
So Florian Rinks, race engineer to René Rast, just giving him the lowdown as the reigning champion heads out onto the circuit for what's going to be a super important 7 minutes, not just for him, but for Robin Freins and for Nico Muller as well. There is Muller heading out now.
So we have enough time, 2 warm up and 2 push.
4th place.
Updated about traffic, I have no camera.
Yes, we are in the front of the pack. So René is the first in turn 5 now. Then it's Newey, Jamie and you. Behind you it's Van der Linde, Rocky, Freins, but everybody in the same sequence as you.
So they're the team radio. Nico Muller saying, my camera's not working, so let me know about traffic behind. Because all I've got is my mirrors, and that doesn't provide the best of views. That's why they have those rear-facing cameras inside the cockpits. So Nico Muller, well, I mean, if he can finish the session in 4th place, he'll actually be very pleased with that, I would suspect, because it'll be much better qualifying than he's had so far here in the 3 efforts at Zolder. He said at the end of the race yesterday, I've got one more chance to make friends with Zolder. We saw the fans who are not in the circuit there, but are outside of the circuit. No fans, unfortunately, allowed here at Zolder under the current circumstances. That was the plan at one point, but of course the circumstances, as we all know, change on an almost daily basis. But they have managed to get some sort of view, some of that little cluster of fans from outside the gates, as we got Nico Muller getting his tyres up to temperature. René Rast out on the circuit ahead of him. Fabio Scherer on provisional pole. His best qualifying so far has been 9th, which was in yesterday's session, and he was 9th on the grid for the first race around the Nürburgring Sprint as well. Pushing a bit too hard on the cold tyres there. It was René Rast, but gets away with it. Here we go then. Top 2 in the championship. Championship leader to your right, René Rast. Former championship leader. now second. Nico Müller to the left of the picture. Look at the concentration and focus in the eyes. I'm trying to control here cars with 580 brake horsepower on a cold circuit and cold tyres. With the push to pass, that gives them another 60 brake horsepower, so 640 brake horsepower maximum on these incredible Class 1 touring cars. Last season of Class 1 as we move to GT Plus next season. Regulations still being put together. That could be announced at the end of the season, maybe even at Hockenheim. But the word that's come through is that Hankook, who've got a deal to remain as the tyre supplier until 2023, absolutely will be still with DTM, but with a different tyre type to match the new cars, and there's going to be rolling starts to the races next season. More information coming through all the time. It's looking like it could be a very exciting new chapter for DTM from next year. But let's concentrate on this year and this qualifying session. Right, into the final 4 minutes. Still getting his tyres up to temperature. Nico Müller is going to have 2 laps, one really, to have a real push. It's Scherer, Habsburg, Aberdeen the top 3, Müller 4th, Freins 5th, Eng in 6th, Rockenfellow 7th, Van der Linde 8th, Green in 9th, Robert Kubica going well at the moment in 10th place. To be on course for his equal second best qualifying of the season so far. He was 9th on the grid for one of the races at the Nürburgring. Unlucky yesterday with a problem that put him out when he looked like he was very much going to be in the points yesterday, Robert Kubica. But a problem with a down on power car just after his pit stop. And as he could have been in good form there, as we see Sheldon van der Linde going back out because he was the last of the pit stop as he led. Stayed out last, went in, and would have had very fresh tyres for the end of the race as well. But it was just after he went back out that he again came into the pits with a problem down on a cylinder. He was saying to Verena after she managed to catch hold of him a few minutes after he'd retired from the race. The one other retiree yesterday was Mike Rockenfellow. They had an oil leak on the grid. He started the race, but oil temperatures were rising and he had to bring the car in fairly early to avoid any serious damage to the engine. And there are a couple of penalties as well. Philip Eng for his move on, well, trying to defend from Jamie Green. Philip Eng was on cold tyres. Jamie Green was trying to go around the outside of him. Contact, not for the first time between those two, so he got a penalty. Sheldon van der Linde for an incident at the start picked up a drive-through penalty, and Benoit Trellier, who's standing in for Loic Duval this weekend, picked up a penalty as well for speeding in the pit lane and held his hands up after the race and said it was my fault. I just pressed released the pit lane speed limiter button a fraction too early. So René Rast, you're watching him now with 2 minutes 20 seconds left in the session. He's down in 13th place. Surely he's not going to end the session down there. Right, green sector time starting to come through. Muller's had a personal best through the first sector, 24.7. Green, a 24.8 personal best through sector 1, and Newey a personal best, but a 24.9. So Müller is going to be the first one to make a move here potentially. Jamie Green, personal best in the second sector as well, looking to progress up from what he's at the moment, 9th place. So Green is going to be the first of those drivers to cross the line. We've got Müller with a personal best in sector 2 as well. He's going quicker on this lap. He's a 10th quicker than Green through that second sector as well. He's already ahead of him on the grid. As René Rast goes on the attack now. So Jamie Green, where will this put him? It should be higher than 9th, I think. Through he goes, up to 6th place, 119.3. And Müller will be the next one to watch coming across the line. Can he improve upon 4th place as he goes through? 119.035. This is much better from Nico Müller. 3rd place now, and only 23 thousandths of a second away from pole position. Robin Freins has just set a personal best through the second sector. Jonathan Aberdeen quickest through the speed trap in the second sector, but not setting the sector times alight. But it's a pretty decent lap for Jonathan. Aberdeen is currently in 4th place. Here's Robin Freins then trying to get himself up ahead of his championship rival Nico Müller, who is 2 places ahead of him on the grid at the moment, 3rd and 5th respectively. René Rast, 24.7 through the first sector. Wasn't a personal best, but it matches anything that Nico Müller did, and he's done the absolute best through the second sector. So Rast isn't going to be 13th for very long. Habsburg goes through, 119.3, not his best lap, but it's a good one. He stays second though for now. Here comes René Rast on the way into the Jackie X chicane. He's going to get another lap at the end of this as well. There's still 30 seconds left on the clock. Got Robert Kubica in the BMW just ahead of him. Over the line comes René Rast. Where is this going to put him? It should be high up. It's to the top of the times, 1:18. 1:18.948. And by 64 thousandths of a second, he's gone fastest. Fabio Scherer pushed back to second, Habsburg to third, Muller to fourth, Aberdeen to fifth, and Freins down to sixth place. Freins on a good lap though, absolute best through the second sector. Muller comes through with a 1:19.056. It's another good effort, but it's a few hundreds behind his absolute best. Rockenfellow should be improving from ninth place. He goes seventh, takes the checkered flag as well. So does Robin Freins, who goes onto the front row of the grid. Second place, 1:18.984. Glock's had a lap time taken away for track limits. Fabio Scherer has done a personal best through the second sector. Can he find another 10th somewhere to get onto the front row of the grid? Aberdeen goes through, he's down to sixth place. It's going to be sixth at best for him. We've got Ferdinand Habsburg on a personal best through the second sector as well, but he was a couple of tenths down on René Rast's time through sector one. Rasta's not going as quickly now. He's backed off, so Rasta's not going to improve again. Habsburg comes through and goes to the top of the times. What about that? Absolute best in the final sector, 1:18.879. And Ferdy punching the air. Look at him, he's going crazy in the car because he knows he's done it.
Pick up, maximize the pickup, mate. Save fuel, save fuel. Good job. P1, P1. Go to the podium.
I think he knows. I think he already knows. Race engineer. There we go. There's the reaction.
Yeah.
Jamie Green goes through and he goes seventh at the end of the session. Is pretty much the last one through, and he improves up to seventh place.
What a machine. Nice. So remember, data stick, save fuel again, and pickup, maximize the pickup.
WRT are having a fantastic weekend here at Zolder.
P4.
Well done to him still.
They scored 27 points yesterday, which equaled the number of points that the
Rust P2,
elect champions got,
P3.
Ab Sportsline.
You're up there, mate.
Rosberg got 32 points yesterday, but 27 points, by far the best score that WRT have got. He moved them ahead of RMR, actually, up to sixth place in the team's championship. And wow, what a performance. He got his maiden podium yesterday. He's now got his maiden pole position. Ferdinand Habsburg right at the end for WRT Team Audi Sport. 1:18.879. The Austrian takes pole position away from René Rast, who did a 1:18.948. Robin Freins a 1:18.984. Great lap, but it's only good enough for third. Fabio Scherer, his best qualifying in DTM, for fourth place. Much better for Nico Muller. That's his best so far here at Zolder this season. Fifth place, but he's still behind his two championship rivals. Much closer to them, though. A 1:19.035 for him, a 1:19.063 for Jonathan Aberdeen. So that's very close again. Jamie Green improved on his final lap to go into seventh place, and then Philip Eng in eighth. So what could possibly go wrong? Green and Eng together on the grid. Ninth, Rockenfellow. 10th, Kubica into the top 10. Good effort from Robert and the Orlen ART team. Sheldon van der Linde, who's out of the points for the first time in a long time yesterday, is 11th on the grid. Harrison Newey 12th, but we know he's got great race pace around here. Lucas Auer 13th. Timo Glock not anywhere near as good as last Sunday, where he was on pole position. He's 14th for this one. Marco Whitman has had a real struggle with the car this weekend. He's 15th. Not often you can say that about Marco, but I'm sure he'll try and drag himself into the points. And Benoit Trillier is closing the gap in terms of pace now as he gets used to the DTM cars. The three-time Le Mans winner is 16th, but a 1:20.201. And he's only 3/10 slower than Whitman, who's just ahead of him. So generally, if he could find half a second, he'd be up in the middle of the pack. Look at that reaction then. That tells you just what it means to Ferdinand Habsburg. You'd think he'd won the race. You'd think he'd won the championship. He has arrived. I'll tell you what, those lucky boots that Verena was showing us on the grid yesterday, you better keep them on for the rest of the season. There's one black race boot and one bright yellow race boot. And wow, fantastic. He's got to go through the procedure of being weighed now to make sure he and the car are above the minimum weight limit. And there we go, the top three in the championship. Well, René Rast scores 2 points for qualifying second. Robin Freins scores a point, so it's 279 for Rast. 267 for Muller, who doesn't score any points, so the gap's out to 12 now, and Robin Freins is just 4 points behind Nico Muller on 263 points, so 16 points now covering the top three in the championship. It could all change in the race this afternoon. Super slow-mos then of our top three after a brilliant qualifying session. Robin Freins, third place, 1:18.984 seconds. Just over a tenth of a second adrift of the ultimate pole time, but a very good effort. René Rast, 1:18.948. Remember, he only had that one run after his lap times were taken away from him for track limits in the first half of the session, and he's only 69 thousandths of a second adrift. He thought he got pole position. We all thought he got pole position, and then Ferdinand Habsburg put together a mega final sector to put himself for the first time in his career onto pole position in the DTM. 1:18.879 seconds, an absolutely terrific lap, and Ferdinand is still celebrating there in the middle of the picture. He's got great company here, hasn't he? He's in amongst the championship frontrunners here. He's got to the right of him René Rast, a double champion. He's got to the left of him Robin Freins, who's won multiple titles in single-seaters in Formula Renault and in GT racing as well. So an absolutely terrific effort from him to put himself into the mix. So René Rast, not quite the pole position he wanted, but he's ahead of his championship rivals, and we can hear from him now. Verena has managed to catch hold of him.
Yes, I've got René Rast here, and they were still doing a little something here. I don't know if I can ask about that. What was that with the tire, and Robin looking at it?
I don't really know. I mean, I saw something interesting on my rim, so I don't know what it is. It doesn't look correct. It does look a bit like something is damaged. So let's see. But yeah, in terms of qualifying, I mean, P2, I'm not happy. I just didn't put everything together. The first outing, first set of tires, I was P1. I just hit the cone slightly, I think. So my lap time got cancelled. In the second outing, I was just in the traffic. I had Kubica ahead of me, Van der Linde. So lots of interfering and couldn't get a clean lap together, unfortunately, but that's how it is sometimes.
But P2 still means you collected points and you're 12 points ahead, so I guess that's good looking towards the championship.
Yeah, that's obviously very good. Today Nico is a bit closer on P5, Robin on P3, so we are ahead of competition, which is positive. So now we need to stay there to gain even more points.
All right, thank you so much, René. Looking forward to the race, and we've got Robin right there, who's in P3. So Robin, you were pushing really hard. You're on P3 now, so getting closer. What's your feeling for the race?
I think yesterday in the race we had some good race pace, really similar as René, I would say. So I think the race will be very interesting. I mean, Habsburg, yeah, he did a very great job to put it on pole. On race pace wise, he was a bit slower than us. So I think it's going to be very interesting.
It's going to be a great race. Thank you so much, Robin. Back to you.
Thanks very much indeed, Verena. Yeah, that's a mark of a champion, isn't it, that René Rast? He's not happy with himself for only being second quickest, and that was not said in an arrogant way. That was just him saying, you know, I didn't quite hook it up together. Somebody that did hook it up absolutely perfectly, though, is now speaking to Verena. Let's hear from him, the man of the moment.
This really is the man of the moment. He's doing a little dance just for us. Habsburg, Ferdi, fantastic job you did there. In the last minute, you snatched pole and you're celebrating it like you're the champion. So what's going on inside?
I feel like the champion of the session, at least. I'm so happy because I made so many mistakes in that session, and I knew I had it from yesterday's qualifying that I could do it, and I was getting more and more angry, and I was like, okay, man, take a deep breath. You've got one more lap to just give it everything you got. And I overdrove it a bit in the first sector. I had a lot of oversteer, and I knew it wasn't great, but I could still do something. And I went down to turn 5 on the straight, and I gave myself a virtual smacking and was like, come on, let's go. And gave it my best and nailed it. So I haven't even seen the times what the gaps were, but it feels like I just got it. So I was very happy.
You did a fantastic job, and I'm really looking forward to the race. Let's see what you can do with your lucky boots. All right, thank you so much, Ferdi. Back to you.
Don't worry, Ferdi, it's a massive gap, 69 thousandths of a second. He actually was 2 thousandths of a second slower than he was yesterday. But it's pole position for Ferdinand Habsburg, with René Rast, the championship leader, for company on the front row of the grid. Robin Freins, third in the championship, third on the grid. Fabio Scherer with his best qualifying so far, fourth. Best qualifying at Zolder for Nico Muller, much closer in 5th, with Jonathan Aberdeen in the top 6 once again for BMW. Jamie Green improved at the end for 7th. Philip Eng is alongside him though. That should be an interesting start to the race. Mike Rockenfellow and Robert Kubica complete the top 10. Then on row 6 we've got Sheldon van der Linde and Harrison Newey starting 11th and 12th respectively. Just behind them, Lucas Auer and Timo Glock. Timo might be one to watch, having had 2 4th place finishes here last weekend. Marco Whitman and Benoit Trillier round out the grid as we look forward to this afternoon's race. Let's head back then to Verena Vliet.
Wow, that certainly was a surprising outcome of the qualifying, but fact is, obviously it's between the 3 contenders right now, and I'm sure the race is going to be so exciting because they're all so super tight. Don't want to miss it, that's for sure. So here are now the highlights, and I'll see you later for the race. Bye-bye.